What does Mumbai Police have to do with Jon Snow or Game of Thrones? What does Zomato have to do with pressure cooker and whistles? It's a brand after all, and I'm sure a brand cannot cook. Why does Burger King, or why did Burger King make a peace day offer to McDonald's? Almost like how you make an offer to a friend that you've grown to, I guess, hate. Now, these are all interesting examples, and if I ask you, you probably will tell me, Sachin, all of this makes for interesting social media content. That is why brands do this, and you are not wrong. However, there is something interesting hiding behind all of these examples, and that's what I want to share with you in this particular video, and also help you figure out how you can also use the same strategy or the same technique in your brand communication or your personal brand communication as well. So don't go away anywhere. This video is about brands being human and how you can win too by being human. Yes, welcome back to why brands act like humans, or at least some brands act like humans on social media. The simple answer to that question is that being human helps. And no, I am not referring to Salman Khan's PR campaign. I'm referring to the fact that brands talk and act like humans on social media to engage better with their audiences. So the answer is fairly simple. You've already heard that. Imagine this situation that you are at your office, you've got a formal email from the HR of your company, sort of maybe talking about a policy change or something like that, and at the same time you get an SMS or a WhatsApp text from a friend of yours who has some juicy details about a colleague. Which one would you be interested in reading first? Now, unless and until the email from HR is about your salary hike, I'm sure that you would want to read about the juicy details about your colleague, because that's what humans do, right? We love gossiping, we love talking, we love having conversations. And that is what brands acting like human is all about. It's called human to human marketing or human to human storytelling. Cognizant on its blog says that, brands realize that we actually are selling to humans, and that is why it is important to have conversations or act like humans as well, because then you engage better with your audiences. Now, this is something that was always followed in advertising. In advertising, you have human characters, and sometimes even brands have human characters or traits. But I think about a decade ago or a little more than that, when brands started making their presence felt on social media, they realized that there is only this much of corporate communication that can go on. You can't use boring, dull and drab language, because people are not interested in that kind of language. People are not interested in that kind of content. And by nature, social media, you need to be conversing all the time. You need to be constantly creating content. And for that, some brand managers figured that you need to have content which is casual, which is unbusinesslike, which is more human. So, yes, let's look at 3 examples of brands which act like humans and unbusinesslike and have been able to garner a huge audience and also, build their brands on social media over a period of time. And after that, I will also share with you some of the do's and don'ts in this human to human marketing or human to human storytelling. Yes, so let's look at a few examples of brands which are acting like humans on social media. Now, the most interesting one, which I'm super excited to share, is the Mumbai Police. They are the OGs when it comes to real conversations on Twitter. And now, this is very interesting. If you are thinking of cops, you probably think of running away from them or avoiding them, right? And by that logic, even the brand on social media should be something that's unapproachable, something that people want to avoid. But specifically because the Mumbai Police understands this, they actually created a brand on Twitter which is probably one of the most approachable. And if you are looking at police forces, it is definitely one of the most approachable police departments in the country, thanks to their Twitter account. So much so that other police departments in the country started following Mumbai Police's lead in terms of being witty, sarcastic, conversational, and fun on Twitter. They actually started this entire trend. Now, when I was a young person in my 20s, I really avoided the Mumbai Police. I was born and brought up in Bombay. But why I avoided the police is something I'll not get into. Maybe that's for some another time. Let me look at some examples, or at least one example of how they actually have conversational style content. This particular tweet, the screenshot where Dhriti from Family Man 2, or at least the girl who played the character of Dhriti from Family Man 2 says, there's nothing to tell. There's nothing to tell. They used that GIF or that video to be able to share this information or the message that you should not share your OTP with scammers or fraud callers, or strangers just calling you on the phone and asking for an OTP. Now imagine if they would have shared the tweet, do not share your OTP with strangers. So boring, right? Now, as opposed to that, by sharing this particular video, this GIF or this screenshot or a snapshot from a very popular web series, it means that young people are actually paying attention to what Mumbai Police's Twitter has to say. This is not the only example. They keep using Game of Thrones references. Recently, they also used a Stranger Things reference to be able to talk about how eve teasing is not a good idea and it could get you behind the bars. Now, I think it's a really interesting way for them to use some other topics, some other trends, which are things that a lot of people are interested in, or at least their target audience on Twitter is interested in, and through that deliver key messages or educate people or inform people about a lot of things. So that's Mumbai Police for you. I do not know if they ever catch you if you're overspeeding or something like that, if they would be so nice, kind and funny. They may not be, but at least on Twitter they are, and that is helping them building a very strong brand. The next example is Zomato. Zomato, is it your food delivery app or a fun friend of yours? That's the question. And I think the answer is that it's both, because if you look at their content on social media, you will realize how they actually have a character of a fun friend or somebody you like to hang out with, who's always witty, always funny, comes up with interesting anecdotes, etc., etc. Yeah. The example that I want to talk about is when they, on Instagram shared an interesting fictional or imaginary chat by Elon Musk. Elon Musk saying that he wanted some food to be delivered in New Delhi, and he said that if the food is not delivered, he'll buy Zomato out. And of course, it was during the time that there was this Twitter buyout saga happening with Elon Musk, and everybody was talking about it on Twitter and on Instagram and elsewhere on social media. So that was super duper interesting, and they always have their character on point. It's almost like I said before, a fun friend, somebody you love hanging out with. And this is not the example. If you look at their Instagram account, if they look at their Twitter, it's replete, or it's filled with many more quirks like this. And that is how they've also been able to extend their brand image of being a cool, progressive company and someone who's always on the pulse of what Indian young people in India want. So now the third example I want to share with you is, and that example is of Burger King. Now Burger King's retorts, Burger King's comments about the competition are something that a lot of marketers could learn from. But their love-hate relationship on social media with McDonald's is something that is probably the epitome of human-to-human conversation, or brands acting like humans. It's almost like two friends who love to hate each other, and there's always an episode which keeps going on, both in advertising and also in social media. So, Burger King also always keeps making comments about how McDonald's is not that great, their burgers are not that juicy, etc., etc. But the interesting thing was that back in 2015 on Peace Day, Burger King made
that was taken out by Burger King
to McDonald's when Burger King
asks McDonald's to join forces
to create the ultimate burger.
the McWhopper.
Thousands of do-it-yourself McWhoppers have been created and shared on social media.
Why isn't this a real thing?
Now, Mac Whopper as a suggestion was made on, in the online world and also through advertising, etc., etc. And it really caught the fancy of a lot of netizens. But Burger King also made sure that they could run this entire campaign around this particular suggestion, which landed them quite a few awards. And not just awards, a lot of people were talking about it. And in fact, because McDonald's turned down the offer, they also came across as the cooler brand, as the more generous brand, etc., etc. So all of these things actually helped Burger King a lot. And to me, that is the epitome of brands acting like humans on social media. So clearly there are a lot of things that you could win. I mean, a lot of reasons why your brand can or should act like a human, because it helps create more engaging content. It also means that there is some sort of an episode or a story which keeps going on in social media. But are there some things that you need to keep in mind as a brand manager, as a founder, or as somebody who's marketing his or her own personal brand or a product brand? There are some things that you need to keep in mind. So that's what I'm going to talk about next, the do's and don'ts. And then I think you will be ready to use human interaction or human style marketing for your own brand as well. So what are the do's as far as converting your brand into a human kind of character on social media is concerned? Number one, take a step back from selling. Sometimes it's just about having a conversation, listening to your audience, and also entertaining. You should not always be thinking about selling, because that is something that will not let your brand feel or act or sound like a human. Number two, speak like a human. Now, humans talk, like regular humans do. It's casual conversation. We use simple, fun language. But a lot of brands actually use super formal language that does not really cut ice with their audience. So remember that. Don't use jargons, don't use industry speak, don't use anything that you would not use in a normal, regular conversation. So number three is be agile. So for instance, if you have planned certain kind of content for social media, but if there's some other conversation that's happening in the online world, you should be able to latch onto that and keep the planned content for some other day. So you have to have very lean approval processes. That's something that you need to keep in mind if you want your brand to be able to react to trends, become a part of conversations, etc. So that was number three. Number four is hire the right people. Now, of course, hiring the right people is always important. But what I mean by this is that you probably want to hire a bunch of youngsters who really know what is happening on social media, on Twitter and Instagram and elsewhere. So, hire the target audience itself so that they are able to create content which is able to cut ice with the audience on the social platforms. The last one, and this is probably the most important in my opinion, is that not everybody is going to like you when you act like a human or when your brand acts like a human. The reason for that is that just like humans, we don't like everybody, right? And which is pretty all right. So if you're creating a boring brand, nobody will have an opinion. But if you're creating an interesting and human brand, then there are a lot of people who will like you, but there will be some who will not. So you should be okay with that fact. Those are some of the do's. Now next up are the don'ts. So what are the don'ts? So don't pick the wrong platform, TG and tone. What do I mean by that? Is that when you're having a conversation, the tone of your brand is really important. And this is not something that you can just take casually, though the conversation and the content sounds casual. There's a lot of thought that goes into it if you look at most brands. So for instance, LinkedIn, though it is a professional network and it's pretty formal, on Instagram their content is a lot more opinionated and slightly funny as well, but still they do not cross a particular line. So a lot goes into thinking about what your brand's TG is, what the tone should be like, and how different will it be on different platforms. So that's something that you need to keep in mind, number one. The second thing is that there is a very thin line in being funny and being insensitive. So be mindful of that line. Now, layer shot ad, which really met with a lot of controversy recently, is something that completely goes into the insensitive and probably even a criminal area. A lot of people are talking about it. Now, this is something that you also need to be wary of when you're having human to human or human type conversations with your particular brand. Remember, there is a line between being funny and being insensitive. So don't cross that line. The third point is don't talk about everything just for the sake of it. Now, even as humans, we are not interested in everything, right? Some people are interested in politics, others are not. Some people are very business focused, others are not. Some people are interested in books, others are not. So understand your brand and also develop the interests or list down the interests of your particular brand, which overlaps with, or which rather goes back and has a connect with the overall brand itself. Because if you're seen talking about anything and everything all the time, people will not really understand what you stand for. And rather than engaging with your audiences, it might be counterproductive and you may alienate audiences, right? That's the next thing that you need to keep in mind. But the final one is that all content that you create, even if it is not sales oriented, even if it doesn't really try to sell your product or service, it needs to have some kind of brand overlap, either in terms of the objective of the brand or what the brand stands for. So all the examples that I shared with you, Mumbai Police was created the Family Man tweet because they wanted to talk about not sharing OTP with scammers. Now that's an important message for Mumbai Police. So that's how it linked back to what Mumbai Police stands for. Zomato, the imaginary chat message sent by Elon Musk was about delivering food at a particular address in New Delhi. Now that is something that talks about the brand service itself, right? Though it is not specifically about Zomato's sales or something like that. The third example that I shared about Burger King, again, the Mac Whopper, or rather the Whopper burger, is something that Burger King is famous for. It's an iconic burger, and it helps them to be able to have that conversation with their audiences or remind the audiences about one of their best-selling products ever. Even if you look at sentiment analysis and statistics and all of that, the campaign really helped Burger King a lot, and even their fun comments on competition have mostly always helped the brand. And that's something that you can keep in mind. But the important thing or an important question is that while brands are warming up to the idea of sounding or acting more human on social media and elsewhere, I think a lot of humans are forgetting that particular trait and they are acting like robots. So the next video, or one of the videos that we wanted to create, is about how can individuals, whether you are leaders, CEOs, founders of a particular company, or just a professional who wants to get ahead in career and life, how you can start sounding more human and how you can use being slightly casual, being slightly personal for your own benefit, your team's benefit, and your organization's benefit as well. Now, if you think that's an interesting topic, just let me know in comments, because depending on how many comments we get, we will go ahead and make the video. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. And before I go, I'll just remind you what the Story Code does. We are a business storytelling, coaching, and training firm. If you have any questions on this topic, feel free to ask us in comments, and either I or one of my team members will answer your questions shortly. That's it from me in this video. I'll see you behind bars. With Mumbai Police. I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye-bye.